This week on the show.
Working and travel through a year of lockdown.
We're doing a virtual live stream, and tonight we're focusing on the plague.
Seeing Spain from the skies.
Por el motivo así, teníamos que ladear el avión para bajar el ala y así es como hacíamos las fotografías.
And rebuilding Zanzibar's House of Wonders.
It was famous for being an early adopter of electricity, and the very first elevator in East Africa was in this building. It's actually how it got its name all those years ago, the House of Wonders. Hello and welcome to Zanzibar. This is Stone Town, Zanzibar City's historic quarter, known for its atmosphere. And the cause of that, besides these really nice winding alleyways,
are the buildings. The architecture is from all over. There's an Omani Palace, an Indian temple, as well as styles left by European colonizers.
However, the end of last year spelled disaster for one of the city's most famous buildings. More on that later. First though,
this week, the UK marked a full year since it first went into coronavirus lockdown, with a day of reflection observed up and down the country to commemorate the lives lost. For around 3 million people that work in Britain's tourism industry, it's been a year of worry and uncertainty. Initial reports suggest employment in the sector might have dropped by 10% last year. But with hundreds of thousands of vaccinations taking place each day and the prospect of restrictions easing in the weeks to come, we went to Edinburgh to find out whether tourism professionals are hopeful for the summer and how their jobs have changed over the course of the pandemic. Rajan tells us more.
With its castle, its cobbled streets, and the annual Fringe, reportedly the world's biggest arts festival, the Scottish capital attracts more visitors to the UK than any other city outside of London, which means it's been hit particularly hard by ongoing travel restrictions. Below the Royal Mile, the main street in Edinburgh's Old Town, one attraction is figuring out how to welcome visitors while keeping its doors closed.
I'm Katie, I'm the Guest Experience Manager here at the Real Mary King's Close. We're in the heart of Edinburgh. A lot of people think that we are underground, however that's technically not true. In 1753 a building called the Royal Exchange was built and they built it straight on top of 4 tiny little streets. What this did was it perfectly preserved the rooms, the houses and the streets that we can still explore today.
Normally, this warren of passages and homes dating back to the 17th century draws around 250,000 visitors a year, but the pandemic has meant they've had to improvise.
Obviously we're closed, so we can't open to the public, but what we wanted to do was bring the Close to people at home. We're doing a virtual live stream, and tonight we're focusing on the plague. But we're looking at the comparison, specifically 1645, which was when the worst plague ever hit Edinburgh, and when you look at what we're going through today, it's quite unbelievable how similar it all is. So the biggest one would be isolation, stay at home. If you thought you had the plague, if you're starting to feel a little bit sick, you'd hang a little white flag outside of your household that basically said, don't come near us, we've got the plague. It also alerted the right people to bring in food and beer because you couldn't go out and get your shop, so it was almost like your Tesco delivery, but in 1645. I think what's really key to take away from this. So we have just finished our dress rehearsal for the live event tonight. It's always exciting to get, especially when we have the Close set up like this. It's not our day-to-day. There's always a little bit of nerves in case you say something silly or forget your lines.
Okay, so we're all ready?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Let's do it. Good. Excellent.
Good evening and welcome to The Real Mary King's Close. Thank you for tuning in to be with us here tonight.
The hour-long webcast has taken 6 people a month to prepare. But other tour companies have decided against these big online events. Forth Boat Tours is a family-run business that have been operating cruises around the Firth of Forth since 2006. They've not organised virtual tours, saying they can't compare to the personal physical experience.
I think the main focus point here is just the iconic Forth rail bridge along at the end there. That's the one that people come to see. They travel from all over the world to come and join us to go on a trip underneath the rail bridge.
Pre-pandemic, they'd also expect thousands of visitors from within the UK. But their tours have only been able to operate for 13 weeks over the past year.
It's been a tough year to keep everything ticking over and to get everything and keeping up with new guidance to allow us to operate. I tend to spend a lot of my time out in the water between on the tours here, dinghy sailing, powerboating. All of that's stopped, it's just not happened, it's been difficult.
With different parts of the UK opening up at different rates, some companies have expressed concern about their ability to attract staycationers. Following announcements made last week, Forth Boat Tours plan to open up again at the end of April, when it's still uncertain whether Scotland will permit non-essential travel from the rest of Britain.
Yeah, I'm excited to get out in the water. I've got some optimism about the summer. I'm hopeful that we'll get staycations. I think it's really important that people get a summer of activity and are allowed to go and explore further afield from where they are. It is a big shame that the international tourists, it's probable that it doesn't look like they'll be back soon. The other thing that we've got that we use a lot here on the Forth is cruise ships. And I think that they've been in limbo for a wee while now, and hopefully they return soon as well, because they play a big part in who joins us on our tour.
In the centre of the city, guest house owner Vivienne is feeling cautious about the next few months. She doesn't plan to open until mid-May, despite restrictions lifting as early as April the 26th.
I don't see that there's going to be a return to normality for Edinburgh this summer. I think people will only want to come to the city when they're guaranteed they can go for a pint round the corner, or they can sit in the museum and take their time to look at things. The tattoo, for example, has already said it's going ahead, but the festival still hasn't decided, so I think people will wait to see what's going to happen from that.
She's only been open 5 days over the past 12 months. Guest houses across Scotland have called for more government support after they were ruled ineligible for £6,000 top-up grants paid out to thousands of hospitality businesses, including restaurants and hotels.
Yes, I miss meeting guests, I miss meeting visitors from all over the world, but it's hit me financially the hardest. Money has been tight, funding from the government has been tight. It is my home as well as my business, and I have still a mortgage to pay, which I've had to pay every month still, as well as all the bills that come with owning a house, owning a guest house. I'm not ready to throw the towel. I'm still fighting to keep alive and keep going with the business that I have, which is a good business when it's open and there's travellers here.
But I want the key thing to be taken away from this is to remember the resilience of the people of Edinburgh. You know, it was a really, really tough, dark, difficult time that they lived through, knowing very little about it. And thanks again for joining us tonight, folks. Stay safe and be resilient. Bye.
Smashed it! Well done!
It's a different type of excitement that we're feeling just now. We've pulled it off, all these hours of work and research, we've been able to do it, but you're not getting that immediate reaction that you do with your guests when they're on site. And yeah, as a team, we're looking forward to welcoming guests again.
And the Close is hoping to open again in mid-May, a couple of weeks after Edinburgh's accommodation, attractions and shops are set to reopen themselves on April the 26th.
Well, international travel is still months away for most of us. We're all watching those infection rates really carefully. In the meantime, we've found some creative new ways for you to soothe your itchy feet and see a bit of the world from your couch.
Easter's coming up in April, and normally thousands of pilgrims head straight for St. Peter's Square in the Vatican for the big services. Last year, they were live-streamed, as visitors were forbidden from going. But if you're more interested in the art and the history on show there are some great virtual tours available on the Vatican Museum's website, including some rooms normally not open to the public. And just around the corner in Rome, the Mausoleum of Augustus opened earlier this month. It was built in 28 BC and has been hidden for 100 years, largely overlooked. A few years back, Ade went to see how the restoration work was progressing.
It's hard to believe that in its heyday, these walls were 3 times higher than they are now, and they were covered in white marble.
Of course, none of us can go there and visit yet, but the team at Fondazione Tim has spent a lot of time and effort putting together the story of the mausoleum, which is told in an interactive timeline on their website. Let's hope we can all go and visit soon. New York City's beginning to look ahead to a time where it can get its actors and musicians performing again. NY Pops Up is a festival of hundreds of surprise performances that began in February and will run until the Tribeca Film Festival in June. The shows are unannounced and unticketed to stop too many people from gathering in one place, and you'll be able to catch some of them on the festival's Instagram and Facebook sites. And an annual highlight of the UK sporting calendar, the Oxford-Cambridge boat race takes place on the 3rd of April, but not in its usual place on the Thames in London. For social distancing reasons, and because there are safety concerns at Hammersmith Bridge, it's all taking place behind closed doors at Ely in Cambridgeshire. The flat Fenland there should provide some atmospheric backdrops to the race, but the big attraction in those parts is Ely's enormous Norman cathedral, and of course, its resident tour guide, Dave, who you'll find on their website.
You must remember this is a medieval cathedral. It's out to get you, so mind your head.
Still to come on the Travel Show.
We meet the Spanish pioneers of aerial photography. And disaster at the House of Wonders. How to fix Zanzibar's heritage showpiece.
But it won't be as it used to be. It will be a repaired House of Wonder.
So don't go away.
Next this week, to Spain. And we're with the family who spent almost 70 years photographing the country from the air. Collectively, they've amassed more than 1 million pictures, documenting a period in which the country's landscape has been transformed by mass tourism. So we asked them to open their archives for us and share some of those images.
Mi padre soñaba con volar. En aquella época era muy difícil, tenía que hacer un negocio para poder comprar una avioneta. Mi padre ahorra y se marca el objetivo de poder hacer fotografías aéreas, dedicarse a las 2 cosas que más le gustan, que es la fotografía y la aviación. Cada vez tiene más encargos de fábricas, de hoteles, de ayuntamientos. Él fue pionero en hacer fotografías antes de los años 60, con lo cual coincide con el periodo de crecimiento urbanístico, de boom turístico. Los pueblos de costa pasan de ser casi pueblos de pescadores a urbes. Empresarios del mundo del turismo, oficinas de turismo quieren tener las fotografías para su promoción en ferias o en oficinas de turismo o en catálogos. Va a tener 11 oficinas comerciales en España y 8 equipos de vuelo. Fueron incorporándose sus hijos, 3 de ellos fotógrafos y pilotos.
Yo, como nací en una familia que eran todos fotógrafos y pilotos, pues llevo la fotografía aérea desde pequeño, y a los 18 años me saqué el título de piloto privado antes de sacarme el carnet de conducir. Bueno, esta es una maqueta de las avionetas francesas que nosotros utilizamos para hacer fotografías aéreas, y aquí se ve muy claramente cómo hacíamos la fotografía. Sacábamos la cámara y giraba el avión alrededor del motivo así. Teníamos que ladear el avión para bajar el ala, y así es como hacíamos las fotografías. He vivido muchas situaciones de riesgo, porque claro, subirse a una avioneta siempre te puedes encontrar con situaciones complicadas. Mi padre era un aventurero y él se subía solo a la avioneta y hacía las fotografías él solo. Tenía una cámara que pesaba 15 kilos. Abría la ventana y sacaba la cámara y hacía las fotografías mientras con las piernas llevaba la avioneta. La mejor cámara que hemos tenido en paisajes españoles, que es la K24, que son las que se utilizaban durante la Segunda Guerra Mundial para fotografiar objetivos militares. Pesan casi 15 kilos y que tenían 50 metros de rollo de negativo.
El momento del declive de la fotografía aérea con avioneta es a partir del momento en que surge Google Earth y los satélites que ofrecen esta información de forma abierta, y también paralelamente surgen la proliferación de drones. A día de hoy ya no volamos y lo que nos queda realmente es la explotación de nuestro archivo histórico. En nuestro archivo tenemos la historia documental aérea de España. Son imágenes únicas tomadas justo, además del momento en que España más ha cambiado. A él acuden tanto personas particulares, todo tipo de clientes para realizar exposiciones, para editoriales, ferias de turismo. Nos piden fotos porque han cambiado tantísimo que esta es una memoria de cómo eran esas localidades, esas playas, esas costas. Soy consciente de que atesoramos el patrimonio documental de España y realmente es una responsabilidad.
Next this week, Zanzibar, a short hop from the Tanzanian coast. I'm doing a little bit of exploring through the winding streets of its capital.
I think I'm lost, but I kind of like it, actually. These alleyways snake through Stone Town, which is Zanzibar's historic quarter, and they're quite beautiful. Actually, the whole place, all of this island, is really stunning.
There are all kinds of influences: Persian, Arabian, African, of course, and European. This was a trading city, a real crossroads. People would come here for spices, but sadly, slaves too. One of the world's last open slave markets is marked by a powerful memorial. Stonetown was made a UNESCO World Heritage Site in the year 2000, and ever since, experts have complained about the condition of many of the old buildings here, the state of their conservation being a particular concern.
And then in December last year, catastrophe.
Zanzibar's most famous building, the House of Wonders, collapsed during restoration work. 2 people died, and the city's cornerstone Omani Palace was left in ruins. The palace was built in 1883 by the second Sultan of Zanzibar. It was designed to impress. The front door, for example, was made wide enough to enter on an elephant.
It was famous for being an early adopter of electricity, and the very first elevator in East Africa was in this building. It's actually how it got its name all those years ago, the House of Wonders. I came here knowing there was going to be damage, but that is a lot of damage. Is there a possibility to restore it?
For the time being, we are just protecting it from further collapse. But after the completion of this first phase of protection of the buildings, we are going to reconstruct the buildings, and I want to ensure you that the buildings will come as it is before, and it will be super.
To help the restoration closely match the original building, experts from the University of Cape Town have been here with 3D scanners to digitally map the remains.
I was shocked, obviously, right? Because, 20% of the building wasn't there anymore. It is really a very spectacular building. It's in East Africa, probably one of the more important buildings. We also documented the House of Wonders in 2019, which turned out to be very fortuitous. Now we have a very accurate record of what it looked like. So the engineers, the construction engineers, the architects can now create an exact replica. I very much hope that it will be reconstructed, and I'm sure the capability is there, the expertise is there, absolutely no question, and the will is there. So I hope that it's going to be another House of Wonders in a few years' time.
Jamila grew up in the shadow of the palace, and she's had concerns about its condition for many years now.
I stayed here, I played here, I know this place very well. I was almost in tears to see the one House of Wonder falling down. Loss is there and it's great, though we are trying to see that it is being rebuilt and maintained as it used to be. But it won't be as it used to be. It will be a repaired House of Wonder.
We are very, very sorry. The buildings have affected every individual person in Zanzibar who really likes this country. Because we say that is a face, that is an icon, the symbol of Zanzibar. So it holds our value. It represents us worldwide as a cultural heritage town. So its collapse really is affected us psychologically. We are not happy.
You hear so much about the natural beauty of Africa, like its wildlife, and very little about the architecture.
Many of the old low-lying Swahili trading settlements along the East Coast are at risk from rising seas and coastal erosion. It's going to take a lot of money and a lot of will to preserve and restore this fascinating history for future generations.
Well, unfortunately, that's all the time we have left for today.
Next week, Lucy's here to revisit some of our favorite adventures in South America, including the time I lived like a gaucho in Argentina's wetlands.
This is one of the craziest things I've done in my entire life. The water doesn't taste very good, and there's miscellaneous things. Some slimy, some spiky, rubbing against most of my body.
And remember, you can join our adventures by following us on social media. We're on all the regular platforms. From me, Mike, Corey, and the rest of the team here in beautiful Zanzibar, keep planning your adventures, and we'll see you next time.